Chair, we are live and ready to start the meeting at whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. I am Robin Rains, and I welcome you to the February 17th, 2022 Design Review Committee meeting. This is usually a 9-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review for projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas: downtown, the Riverfront, and the new hotel overlay zoning district. This is a mandatory review, voluntary compliance process with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from the committee. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a bit differently. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. You can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel. We also have an option for the public to listen live by calling 855-925-2801 and entering code 9410. When we get to the public comment section, you may dial this same number and press *3. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I will now go through roll call and introduce all the committee members who are participating virtually. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. When you have a question or would like to speak, unmute your microphone. Please remember to mute your phone after you're done speaking. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Jeremy Goldstein.
Hello.
Hello. Kimberly Hunter.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Stephen Lee Johnson.
Hello.
Hello. Brian Moffitt.
Hello.
And I am Vice Chair, Temporary Chair, Robin Rains. Let's see. Now to help, we're going to go to the agenda items, which first is administrative and unfinished business. And to help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud and then do a vocal roll call for each vote. If there is a vote to be taken, and additionally, I ask that committee members raise their hand to speak, and I will call upon them. We will begin with administrative items, and under administrative, we have approval of the minutes of January 20th, 2022. Mouthful. Did everybody get a chance to read them? Jeremy?
A motion to approve the minutes?
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Brian seconds. Okay, I guess we do the roll call vote for that now. Jeremy Goldstein.
Aye.
Kimberly Hunter.
Aye.
Brian Moffitt.
Aye.
Stephen Lee Johnson.
Aye.
And I am an aye. So the minutes are approved. Next on the administrative agenda is the update to the rules and procedure for the design review committee.
Chair Rains, can I just offer?
Oh, yes, Kimberly. I'm sorry.
That's
sorry.
Okay. It's an unusual item to add. So
yes,
right.
And it wasn't on my little
it's not typically there.
Thing.
Yeah.
I do want to acknowledge that we lost a very valuable member of this committee, and it was Karen Craig Nolan, and her friend Kimberly Hunter wanted to say a few words in honor of her. So I'm going to hand the floor to Kimberly now. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment. Boards and commissions and committees are really comprised of volunteers and wonderful people in our community, represented on this board and commission and others. But Karen was a phenomenal human who did some really powerful work in our community, especially and specifically to the River Arts area. And I just wanted to honor not only her life and her personhood, the fact that she was an amazing wife and an outstanding mother, and wonderful grandmother, but also specifically just her contributions to really helping to build up and out what we all now appreciate as the River Arts District area. So, when we lose members of commissions and volunteers, I just really want to honor the fact that business moves on, and of course the show must go on, but we really lose a big part of our community. And so I just really wanted to thank her family for continuing on in her work, and we will miss her very, very much. Thank you, Chair Rains.
Thank you, Kimberly. That was lovely. We will miss her. Okay, now on to the update to the rules and procedure for the Design Review Committee. Will, did you want to talk about that at all, or are we just to approve them? Shannon?
Oh, yep, I'll take it.
Okay.
It really probably doesn't require much introduction, but for the public's benefit, let me go ahead and share our screen. So as this body knows, every city board and commission has its own set of rules and procedures. What I'm sharing here is your particular rules and procedures as proposed to be amended. So text that will be removed is striked through, and text that we propose to add is highlighted in that light gray there. So as we have discussed, this is a change to your rules that will be consistent with the ordinance that was recently approved by City Council. That ordinance change came about as a result of some recommendations that the council considered at the 6-month mark for changes that were all adopted when the hotel overlay and development standards were established. And at this point, it's probably about 8-9 months ago. So this is really just kind of a housekeeping amendment. It's just to kind of clean up your rules so it's consistent with that ordinance that's already been adopted. But just to quickly go over it, you're still a 9-person committee, but now instead of 8 being appointed by City Council and 1 being appointed or selected by the committee, we just make all 9 seats appointed by City Council. We've also adjusted that instead of 4 members each from the Downtown Commission and Riverfront, that we propose to change that to 3. So that makes the remaining 3 seats appointed at large by City Council. So that is really, that's really it. That's the change in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions if the committee has any. Otherwise, I think you can feel free to proceed with a vote.
And Shannon, the existing 4 members will just continue to serve from the Downtown Commission until one of us just rotates off naturally from our position on downtown, at which point we'll be down to 3, and then we will be in compliance with this. Is that correct?
That is correct. Although I will say I got a phone call from the clerk earlier this week trying to think through this. They may decide to do that a little bit differently. And instead of just waiting for one of the 4 Downtown Commission people to cycle off, they may ask one of you to become an at-large member instead. But either way, you'll continue to serve until your term is up.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Move we adopt the revised whatever these are, as
Rules of procedure.
rules of procedure as stated.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, second, Kimberly. Roll call vote now. Jeremy Goldstein,
Aye.
Kimberly Hunter,
Aye.
Stephen Lee Johnson,
Aye.
Ryan Moffett,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So now we will move on to new business with a formal design review. This project is through my firm, so I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion and turn the meeting over to Brian Moffett to lead.
And yay. And
Yay.
I'm going to turn it over to Will. I'm assuming, Will, are you presenting this?
Yes, sir. I
Perfect.
will go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So this is a level 2 review, site plan review. You all saw this project as an informal review back in December. So basically, this is a historic rehabilitation of an existing building called the Star Building. It's located downtown, 28 North Lexington Avenue and 17 Broadway Street. It sits across both frontages. It's in the CBD zoning district in the traditional downtown core, and it's in the hotel district overlay that allows for small hotels. So therefore, they are proposing to rehabilitate the building with 35 lodging units and 4,500 square feet of retail space. I'll just flip through some of the plans and walk through that rehabilitation of the building. So we have some floor plans. We don't have to look at these extensively unless they're needed. So I'm just going to flip to the aerial imagery. So this is a good oblique view of the site, the building on Lexington and then Broadway. And this diagram just illustrates that the building will meet the fenestration requirements in the downtown design guidelines for both the ground floor and the upper floor percentage opening requirements. So the Lexington Avenue elevation is 4 stories, and you can see that essentially the project is proposing to rehabilitate the facade and repair the brick, also repaint it where it was previously painted, which is kind of hard to tell on the picture. It's so faded, but it was previously painted, and that's being coordinated with the historic tax credit review of the project. It also includes the repair of historic windows, the existing marble glass to be refurbished. There is an existing entry on the left storefront, and then a new entry is proposed to be installed on the right. You can also see the proposed HVAC perforated metal panel at the roof line that will be used to screen HVAC equipment that will be installed. On the Broadway Street elevation, it's 3 stories, so just because of the topography across the block, that's where the change in building height happens, even though it's a relatively flat roof line. So you can tell from the existing picture on the left and the proposed on the right that this building's been heavily modified on the facade, and all this EFIS and door opening balconies will be removed, and the old facade will be reinstalled with new brick after that removal of the EFIS and stucco. New aluminum clad double windows installed, new signage bands, and a new wood storefront and a metal railing on the ground elevation there. The facade to the right is basically going to be rehabilitated, just cleaned and repaired as needed. New awning, as you can see, a new aluminum storefront will be installed there. And moving around to the College Street elevation, which fronts on another parcel which is used for surface parking, and which this project will be utilizing. There's no parking for other uses required in the CBD district except for the hotel use. And those 17 spaces will be leased from this parking lot to the south of the property. And therefore, the main entryway for the hotel will be off this College Street facing elevation as shown here in kind of the center of the building, with a new steel and glass awning to be installed. You can see that as proposed, it's mostly repainting the brick, repairing windows, adding new windows to match where I believe they were existing before, and being reinstalled, or if they weren't, that's being coordinated with the historic rehabilitation of the building as well. On the opposite side, the Tingle Alley elevation, not a whole lot is changing except for rehabilitation and repainting of brick. And you can see more details of the HVAC screening and then also this element, this kind of stucco cap that's, I believe, the stairway access that will be, I believe, minimally visible, especially from the other main elevations of the building as well. Let's see. So, as you can see in the staff report, the project meets all the downtown design guidelines, including things such as height and massing, even though it is existing. Still would meet the height and massing requirements, even if it was a new building. The materials and fenestration details are compliant, and it also meets the recommendations and requirements for rehabilitation, maintenance, and additions. As I said, this was informally reviewed by this committee back in December, and there are some notes about the marble glass on Lexington Avenue, and also some notes about the College Street facing awning entrance, which has been modified from that design. The Downtown Commission also reviewed this project on January 14th. There's some questions about the stucco on the Broadway Street elevation in lieu of brick. There was a suggestion that the street trees fronting the property, the one on Broadway Street that's diseased, and the two Bradford pears on Lexington Avenue be removed and replaced with appropriate tree species with silvocell systems. That the ingress and egress via Tingle Alley be maintained during the duration of the construction project for both residents and visitors. And then just some clarification about the parking and the access to the hotel by the applicant. So staff is supportive of this project, and I believe there is the architect with us today if you'd like to present or share any more information about this.
Hey, I'm Jeff Dalton of the Red House Architects, and Will did a very good job of covering all the bases and don't really have a whole lot to add. Glad to take questions.
Go ahead, Stephen Lee.
Which items on the public benefits table is this project going after?
It's got I put that in a narrative to Will. Got it a little late, but got it in a couple of days ago. 50 points on historic preservation and 60 points on $1,000 a unit affordable housing. Or maybe it was, Will, do you have that? I can't remember if it was 1,000 or 3,000, but it's
Looks like $1,000 per room to the city's HTF affordable.
yeah, so we get 110 points.
We may have to talk a little bit offline about some of this. I think the table actually lists 3,000 per room. We'll have to take a closer look at this. This is going to planning and zoning, presumably on March 3rd or 2nd, and this will be looked at a little more closely. There might be some clarification needed on public benefits. So just to bring that up.
If
So
it wasn't 1,000, it was 3,000. Whichever one got us the 6 points. I might have been looking at the table incorrectly.
Wait,
Yeah,
you might want to double check it, Jeff, because we think that it might also be 140 points instead of 110.
Okay.
in terms of requirement, Shannon,
Yeah.
that they need. Well, if they have 35 rooms, I'm looking at the chart here. It says 100 points.
That's what I saw.
There's different requirements for the CBD districts
Okay.
and other districts.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong district. So it is 140 points. So, so basically, the project's proposing, in addition to the historic, the adaptive reuse component, they're proposing the $3,000 per room. And there's 35 rooms, so that's $105,000 that would go towards the affordable housing reparations. Is that correct? Basically,
Yes.
Yeah,
well, that's
and
the
it's
intent.
yeah, it can be either affordable housing or reparations or a split between the two. So the developer has a choice.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a process question?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Do we need to discuss that at all from a design review perspective? As long as they meet it, I'm sure because they can't build it. That's going to be a condition for anybody, right?
Yes, it's just important. I mean, I don't think it's inappropriate for the committee to mention it because it does require a hotel that is seeking to bypass council review does require a positive recommendation from the DRC. So I think it is good to kind of clarify that that is what this project is proposing to do. So public benefits is the other requirement in order to bypass council review. So.
And just in case, Jeremy, like if they were trying to do something with artwork, specifically artwork on the building, then it would, maybe we would need to note that. But if it's these items are not necessarily in that, and I just have also a process question related to the adaptive reuse. Is that tied to a specific standard? In other words, to qualify for that, do they have to have SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office approval, or can they just say they're doing that? I'm sure Jeff and Row House is going to meet SHPO approval. I'm just curious about the process.
We do not require that it meet a historic standard, just that it doesn't demolish any portion of the building.
We might want to talk about that at some point because that adaptive reuse could be interpreted. I mean, this one I think is definitely meeting that standard. They're doing historic rehabilitation. They're going to get Jeff. I hope I'm not speaking out of school here, but you're looking to get approval from a qualified agency. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to go for historic tax credits. So we'll be, pursuing those and seek to comply with the Secretary of the Interior's 10 Commandments for historic preservation.
Yeah. Shannon, kind of what I'm thinking is that we might want to beef up that adaptive reuse to get the 50 points. They either have to get a SHPO approval or our local HRC has to sign off on it. But I'm probably getting deep in the weeds. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I think it's something definitely we can consider when looking at the table. I want to be careful of changing the city's base definition of adaptive reuse because that applies everywhere in the city, not just for historic
right.
buildings.
But if we're going to award points or the city's going to award points, there should be I shouldn't as an architect just say, hey, this is an adaptive reuse. Somebody else should be able to qualify that. Anyway, okay. Any other comments or questions regarding the design of the project? So I'd like to note a couple quick things from my previous review. One, the applicant has redesigned the canopy entrance on the facade facing.
Hey, Brian.
Lost it. Yes.
I just opened up the table and it says next to adaptive reuse of historic building as per the Secretary of Interior standards.
Well, then that would meet that then. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that. So that they would have to have some kind of sign off by some agency then to do that. Never mind, Shannon. Sorry.
No problem. I just cut and paste into the chat the UDO definition of adaptive reuse, which does say that it needs to retain some of the architectural details that make the building unique. So it is a little,
well, I guess
not as specific as what the table requires, but
I guess I'm wondering, if that's something to what Stephen Lee was getting at is like, unless you have a third party agency like State Historic Preservation, Secretary of Interior, our local HRC, signing off on that, then maybe this body or maybe P&Z, someone needs to make that determination before those points are automatically awarded. So getting back to the design, they redesigned the new store front entry and the canopy. I think that awning is much more appropriate than what I remember from the previous submittal. And I'd also like to note that I understand the stucco on the, I think that's the Broadway Street elevation. They really can't try to take that back to the brick because of the way the property lines are actually drawn. It's that building on the right is actually not all of that building is part of this project. The property line goes right through the middle of the building, or actually, it's kind of weird. So about all they can do is the stucco or some similar treatment on that wall. They really can't just restore the brick and then stop. I think the street view right there shows it pretty clearly what's going on. So I understand that material choice now.
One thing I'd like to clarify about the Broadway elevation.
Please.
The new elevation is entirely new construction. The ethos is on CMU, so that the building burned at some point and was rebuilt with a CMU and ethos. So we're pulling that off, and that's all new brick. I wasn't sure if that was clear or not. And if we went with brick, like you said, Brian, on the lower level, we would be over the property line. So
right.
That's why we're going stucco.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions regarding this application?
And also on the public benefits, and it's 3,000 a unit, and that would get us 150 points. So I don't know where. I think I made up the 1,000 a unit category, being frugal and all, but it is 3,000, and I'll change that on the document.
Go ahead, Stephen Lee.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this proposed adaptive reuse project as a 35-room hotel as it has been submitted today.
Wonderful. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Do we need to ask for any public comment before we take a vote?
I'm not sure. Do we? Well, do we have any public comment? How about that?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. And to the best of my knowledge, we did not receive any public comment, any emails regarding this project ahead of time. Okay, thank you. Robin has recused herself. Jeremy Goldstein.
Aye.
Kimberly Hunter.
Aye.
Stephen Lee Johnson.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. It is unanimous. The project passes. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll turn it back over to Chair, Vice Chair, Acting Chair, all the chairs, Robin Rains.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have new business, and it's 2 projects for informal design review. And the first one is 72 Broadway Street, the Create 72 Broadway project that has been here for informal design review before.
Thank you, Chair. So the committee has seen this project before, and a number of you who also serve on the Downtown Commission actually just reviewed it again last week. The applicant hasn't submitted any revised plans, but I will very quickly just kind of review them, or review the older set of plans with you, so you can kind of be refreshed or have your memory refreshed as to what you had viewed before. So this is for the property located at 72 Broadway. So this is in our downtown. The proposed building is a mixed-use building, excuse me, that's a 9-story building with some levels of parking. The entire building is just under 100,000 square feet and under 100 feet tall, and so it does meet the threshold of a level 2 review. The project does include extended stay hotel units, so this is another one of those hotel projects that is seeking to bypass council review by supplying public benefits and by obtaining a positive recommendation from the DRC. In addition to the hotel rooms, the project proposes to include 18 residential condominiums, approximately 2,000 square feet of ground level retail, and then, as I mentioned, those 3 levels of structured parking. There's 1 level that's below grade and 2 levels or partial levels above grade. Broadway is a designated key pedestrian street. This is Broadway here on the left or on the west side of your screen. And as a key pedestrian street, the development code and the guidelines recommend trying to avoid any driveway cuts on the road. So the applicant is proposing to bring access to the structured parking through this publicly dedicated alley. So it will vehicles will enter through the alley that comes off of Broadway further south on the block, and then we'll access them that way. We don't have a site plan just yet, but this ground level elevation shows you more or less the footprint as it sits on the property boundary, the main primary entrance here, and then some additional entrances for these 2 retail spaces. Also, the project will be required to reconstruct the sidewalk out front so that it's conforming. So it's a minimum of a 10-foot wide sidewalk, and there could be some street trees required as well as part of that. I'm going to scroll through all of the other elevations or the floor plans so you can see the primary facade elevation. So there, that is the Broadway facing facade. So you can see you've got your ground level fenestration that meets the development requirements for fenestration. Also, there is a step back here at the 4th level that satisfies the step back requirements. There's sort of a prominent portion of the building. I won't say tower exactly, but it's that front piece sort of stands out. And then there's a step back here on the north and south sides of that. I guess we'll just call it a tower for lack of a better description. That's kind of the project there in a nutshell. There are some additional elevations that I think are probably less informative, but as I mentioned, this project was reviewed by the Downtown Commission, who did have some concerns, I think primarily rooted in that the project's still in design development, so we don't have all of the information yet as far as the site or other features of the project, whether or not there are any green features or other sort of kind of site public benefits. Also, we need more information about the materials, how the project fits in contextually with the rest of the block. And I think that was probably the primary concern expressed by the committee and the commission previously, is trying to understand like how this project fits. This is one of our more architecturally historic and interesting blocks in the downtown. And so we want this project to better reflect the design of the, or incorporate some of those historic facade features into this new project. So the design team are here today and would like to talk with the committee a little bit more about their thinking and what they're anticipating. I think they have a little bit more design information to share as well. And so I'll check first to see if there are any questions for me, but then I think we can turn it over to them to add a little bit more information. Brian?
Shannon, I had one quick question. This looks different even than what we saw in last week at Downtown Commission.
I
distinctly remember the little arched windows
Yeah.
on the base.
As soon as I pulled it up, I realized that I noticed the same thing. So I will go back and try to get that more current elevation and display it here for you. So let me stop presenting this. Let me go search for that.
Jeremy, you had a question too?
Yeah, and I don't know if you have the answer to this at the moment, but where is the drop off and access to the hotel?
It would be through the alley. We do not allow loading on the street for a hotel, so it would have to come through the alley or drop people off elsewhere and have them walk in. But
Okay.
there won't be any dedicated loading in front of a building.
Is the alley a public alley that they have a right to use for that purpose?
It's a publicly dedicated alley, and they are one of several property owners who can use that alley. Peter, do you want to, or Eric, do you want to go ahead and speak a little while I pull up this?
Sure. Yeah, Shannon, let me, rather than look at those intermediate drawings, what I'd like to do, well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to have another look at this project. We're very excited about it, and we're constantly trying to improve it and make it better, make it fit in better. And we're relying on this committee to help us along the way. So on behalf of MHA Works, thank you for taking the time to meet with us. What I'd like to do is open up the Revit model, which we've been working on this morning, and be able to take a look at the...
Let me share your screen first. Grab that.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, you
I'm
can
gonna
hear me? All right. Thank you all very much. This is sort of an isometric view of the building, proposed building from the southwest. And what we're trying to do, and we haven't finished this yet, of course, but we're looking at taking some cues from the surrounding buildings to incorporate into our project. And and there's several of them around. If you walk around that area, there's a lot of articulated brick. There's contrasting stonework that appears to be limestone, and arches not only on the Center for Craft building across the street, but the Masonic Lodge, which is immediately to the north beside this volume right here. The explanation, or the reason for showing this volume, is this is what a low-rise building based on the current design guidelines would be if it were built on that site between our building and the Masonic Lodge, which is over on this side. We did that just as a means to show scale of the project, or a potential future project. What we're looking at now is trying to go back to the fundamentals of base, middle, and cap, and to try to do that and incorporate that in with the step back requirements that allow us to retain a third of the building facade on the building street front, which is this element right here. And what we've done in plan, if you remember the earlier version from last year, it was over to the south. It was more off-centered from the entry. And we felt that that was an awkward compositional situation that just never looked resolved. So we reworked the interior plans of the building so that the projected element, which is the third of the facade, is centered over the center entry into the building itself. So we think that's a positive move architecturally for the project. We're looking and continuing to look at the whole idea of introducing some type of masonry arched opening that would possibly be some type of veneered limestone or engineered stone within a field of brick. All along the base of the building, all the way around all four sides, we're intending to use some type of brick veneer, which may be a darker, maybe almost a iron spot darker gray type brick or a darker red brick that is typical of the other brick buildings within the context of the site. The middle portion of and that, again, that's surrounding all four sides. The middle portion of the building from this point here up to here would be another, on the predominant facades facing Broadway and to the north, that would be another brick veneer of a different color. It may be a lighter red brick, it may be, I don't know, some other brick product. And the openings in this area here, which is, we're saying is the middle of the building, we're trying to make that, even though there are step backs here, we're trying to make that more read as a unified element. And to do that, what we're proposing is, while we have these types of handrails on the side and the rear of the building, we think that it'd be more appropriate to not have projecting handrails to the front street facade, because they're not really typical of balconies downtown. So if you can see in close-up view, we're trying to have the balcony guardrail be more integrated into the wall of the building with a small glass guardrail on top that gives us our 42-inch height guardrail minimum for code compliance. We're also looking at introducing or reintroducing some type of banding at the windowsill level that wraps around the masonry, along with some type of masonry element at the head of the windows. And again, using that as an opportunity to pick up similar details on the surrounding buildings, which we will continue to work through. The upper part of the building, and this is on the 8th and 9th floors, we want to do something that's a little bit more unique from and stand out from the rest of the building, and to be our response to the cap of the base middle cap strategy. And this would be some type of, potentially a metal panel or some type of a non-masonry material. I don't know, we're looking at some type of stucco system, some type of metal panel system. We haven't landed on that yet. But what we would like to do is change the windows so that they're a little bit larger, that they run from the floor up to the ceiling, and create a differentiator between this part of the building and the middle part of the building, and have it be a true cap. Now, some of the detailing here, obviously we haven't determined yet. There needs to be some type of parapet cap here to finish it out, and also to make it watertight. We're looking at windows that will be predominantly storefront with and again, by storefront, what I mean is there will be an aluminum clad window that'll probably be a dark bronze color with operable windows set within those frames. The glass will meet the building code requirement, and it won't be reflective or it'll be transparent glass as required. Now at the lower level, go back down to there for a minute. What we're trying to do is activate this street and have more activity. And what we have done is we've reduced the amount of parking on the main level in order to have a little bit larger retail space on the north side of the building. I'm going to open up that view here. Let's see, that would be the 1.0 level. What you're seeing here is, this is the main lobby space right here. We're having a larger retail space and a little bit of some front office and a reception area all in here. So there's no barrier between entering into the hotel lobby and entering into this retail space. There should be some type of small restaurant or food service. And we feel, and that will be accessible to the public. And what that does, that's going to make this ground floor more activated for street at the street level. Then there'll be another retail space back here that's a little bit under 1,000 square feet that will be activated as well, and it will have a separate entrance off of Broadway. So while we're meeting, I believe, the requirement that the retail spaces enter directly from the street, we like the idea of making all of this seem larger by having our lobby connect into this restaurant space. And we feel that because we're providing an entry here, that it meets that, the spirit of that requirement. I want to go back to the 3D view for a second here. Bear with me for a second. Yeah, I've got it here. Let me try to spin this around. Yeah, here we go. Now, the idea of this, I know there's a little bit of discussion about having the word create on the side of the building. That was supposed to, that is intended to be some type of signage. Of course, it can't be that big, and we don't want it that big, but there will be some type of metal element along here that integrates with the color of the metal up here that ties together the sign and some type of commissioned sculpture piece. Once we bring this for the next review, or obviously before the formal review, we will have that, what that looks like, have that determined and have that in the model so that that can be reviewed. But for now, we wanted to give you an update on the changes to the design that we have brought to the project since the meeting with the Downtown Commission last week. What I'd like is to have all of you, if you would, just let's talk about materials, masonry detailing, coursing, things like that, that are part of the context of our building, and see what, we're just interested in your ideas on that, because we'd like to incorporate them into this and make it a successful project. So, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Quick question, even before we get into details. Why base middle cap? Why not? So I think when we talked about this project previously, like you can leave your model up if you don't mind, Peter. I like looking at it. It's helpful. That middle, the primary element that comes out. Why are you doing kind of a base middle cap organization? Have you thought about looking at that piece being a piece that's a vertical organization with different pieces on each side of it, and that piece even being expressed slightly taller than the two pieces on either side of it? Is it the program that's kind of driving the base middle cap, or is it the architecture itself? I don't know if I'm expressing it correctly.
Yeah, Brian, what we're struggling with is we just need some guidance as to what will be the preferred outcome here. I mean, we obviously have strong feelings about what the design ought to be. It's a little bit awkward in terms of introducing additional elements because of all the step backs that are required. We have obviously, so what
that's where I'm going though, Peter, is that so one of the here's what I see you doing is like you've almost taken a diagram of what the step backs are required to do, and then you've just expressed them horizontally with different materials. And right. I'm wondering if instead of that, you had a more cohesive. So like, I'm still reading that vertical element as wanting to be its own thing, top to bottom, as the organizing principle. I think our guidelines, say, you can do it base, middle, cap, or vertical, or other organizing language or concept. I can't remember the exact verbiage, but so it just doesn't feel like a cohesive building to me right now. There's a lot going on with the base looks like a piece, but then it doesn't really relate to the next layer up, which then kind of relates in terms of the fenestration, but only in terms of that, and then it changes materials, and that's the cap. And I'm just wondering if it would be, if it would organize itself better if instead of doing base, middle, cap, you were really looking at, okay, what if we had this big vertical piece that started in the ground, and then it came up and it's a little taller than everything around it, and that's the primary, that says the building, and then you organize the rest of the building around that piece, and you're not worried as much about base, middle, cap organization. Robin's got her hand up. I'm going to shut up just a minute.
No, I agree with you. The thing that I've got the Masonic temple pulled up over here, and I'm looking at it, and it has a centerpiece that goes all the way up, and I think that you have that. And I think that should be one piece. We got 9 public comments about this project for today's meeting, and most of it was parking, which we can talk about in a second, but some of it was the modernity of this project compared to the historic buildings around, and how it doesn't seem to be having a conversation, and people love the Masonic temple. And I think that center element has an opportunity to really reflect the Masonic temple in a more modern way. And I do think that it would look better if it looked like one big piece instead of a split layer cake kind of thing in that particular section. And I'm really glad you got rid of the handrails on the front, though. That was a really good decision.
Well, I agree with both of you. I like the idea of running that element down to the sidewalk, because it will allow us to differentiate the main entry into the building and make it read as the element. It'll be the primary element of the whole project, and everything else can maybe work around that. I like that. One of the other things that run through my mind, just trying to figure out how to do it, because that side faces west, and we're worried about having too much sunlight or heat gain. But maybe that element needs to be all glass, or more glass than there is in it right now, to help differentiate it from the rest of the building and bring that all the way down to the ground, because that might do that as well.
Agreed. I think once you figure out what that piece is, see, I'm good with you pulling that piece up and it being, I think we talked about that last time, that can remain vertical. And I'm thinking of like the Jackson building or something like that. It can have differentiation, as it moves up, but it reads as a vertical element, and it can be lighter. Like you said, maybe, I don't know whether it's all glass or it's in that language, but then that organizes, I think, your partie for the building, and you can push and pull on it from there. And then I want to speak real quickly to some of the public comment that we got specifically regarding historic. I'm only one vote, but I don't want what Jack used to call matchy. I'm not looking for you to match the Masonic Temple or Jackson or any of the other things that I love. I want this to be of its time. So that doesn't mean that we, just cut and paste historic detailing into that building. What you do needs to be of the building itself and of its time, and just really beautiful design. So does that help a little bit, Peter, on if you're looking at that organizing piece? I would support that. I think that would resolve some of the things that I see going on with this building, the disconnect, at least that I'm reading right now, in how the bottom 2 floors, that next 5 floors, and that top are expressed is part of what I'm reading.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that, well, one of the reasons that we moved that projecting element over was to have it center on the entry. We looked at moving the entry off center and have it aligned with the vertical element in its prior position, but that wouldn't work functionally inside the building. So now we have the projecting element centered at the front door, and we just need to make that whole thing be, make it work. I mean, it's close. It just needs to. Yeah, I think that's completely doable. What, how about the others on the design committee? Jeremy or Kimberly, do you have any thoughts about it, or?
Robin, I've got some comments. Is it okay if I go ahead to Stephen Lee?
Yeah, Stephen Lee.
First of all, Peter, I think this is a good reminder, and again, we appreciate being a part of this informal discussion with you. I think that maybe you can understand some of the concerns. Brian did a really good job in stating the initial concerns that we've had in the basic forms that were presented in kind of the schematic format, and this journey with you to kind of get this to where we know everyone would like to see it isn't overnight, and we realize that. So I do think that, as we begin to see that y'all are striving to architecturally, as you move forward in the design process, really concentrate on architectural elements. And it's, even boils down to some of the simple things like, as Robin mentioned, the handrail on the front, these window heads that are showing up in the Revit models, just, it's an important reminder that it's an evolving process. My concern right now on this project is the access through this public alley. And I'm going to assume there hasn't been a public meeting on this yet. Is that correct?
Well, we've gone through formal TRC.
Okay. When I think about what a public alley is, I think of it as a working street that services the backs of buildings that need deliveries. Owners pull up to drop off something quickly, or a place for trash storage, and they can also be quite nice. I know that I walked down this alley last week, and Shannon, I think you had mentioned at Downtown Commission that right now there's a good bit of people that are parking illegally back there. And if everyone was parking legally, you could see the open space that exists. But there's just something about all this added access, 2 lanes of traffic utilizing that alley. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 22 hotel units and 18 condominiums accessing the garage. I'm going to assume service comes in this way as well. There are a lot of businesses that use that alley. And I don't know, do any of the other committee members have concerns with that?
That would be, I brought it earlier on. I'm sorry. Should I speak or no?
No, that's all right.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the first things I was looking at was, is it a public alley that's for the benefit of every property owner that touches it? Do they have a right to it? Does everyone else have a right to it? How wide is it? Are there current encroachments in it that are restricting the dedicated, flow, in terms of steps and meters and all those things that, kind of happen that no one cares about until, it matters. So, yeah, that's, I share those concerns, but that's why I just asked the question to be on record for them to be paying attention to that and make sure that it's, you know, from a starting point that they have the right to use it in the way that they want to use it.
Well, this is a good time to bring this back up again, because in our original design that we brought before the group back in the fall, we had a primary entry off of Broadway using one of the existing curb cuts that is there, and having the alley be just for servicing the building for repairs or trash removal, things like that. And at the time, we were asked to change the design and move the entry off Broadway and put it on the alley. It needs, you know, obviously it needs to go in one of those two places. If we need to revisit the entry off of Broadway, we could certainly do that, but we were asked to not do that. So I think I think that just needs to be resolved, because it will change obviously the internal layout of the parking in the building, which we can do. We just need to know what is going to be, you know, what will be approved. Now, if you remember, it was on the southwest corner of the project was where we had the curb cut, and the entry into the garage was recessed deep enough within the building towards the east so that cars weren't going to be, you know, blocking the sidewalk that a full car length could pull in. So it will work. We had it, I mean, it just was a function of a slightly different layout than what we have here, but it did work. So if you can give us some guidance in that direction, we would appreciate it. Obviously, the cars have to come in from one of those 2 points.
I'm gonna, Kimberly, you, and then Shannon.
Gosh, I have so much on my mind. I don't want to say too much, but I do want to just say this. I really appreciate, Peter and team, that you actually are utilizing this committee as we're designed, is to come to us, throw stuff, you know, figure out what's sticking, what's not working, and come up with better design. I really appreciate that. I have a lot to say. I think I'm going to table it at this moment because my thoughts are not organized. Maybe I'll try to get it to you before you finish your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon.
You're muted, Shannon. We can't hear you.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk about the alley access. So it is a minimum 20 foot. It's at least 20 foot wide, that alley. I think it's at the narrowest 20 and widens to other areas. There is a lot of informal parking going on that shouldn't be occurring in an alley. Alleys should be kept free and clear. So there are some things that need to be kind of addressed before that alley can be used in the way that is being proposed to be used now. But presumably there's a way to do that. We want to be able, just from a fairness standpoint, this property is entitled to have access to their parking just like all of these other properties have access to their parking by using that alley. The alley is already two-way. It's not, because there's this unpermitted illegal parking going on, I don't think is a reason to discourage the use of the alley for this property to access parking. I personally don't see a difference between surface parking and structured parking. Even the number of spaces are not very different from this project versus some of the other projects. So that combined with the downtown development requirements and the design guidelines that try to preserve the pedestrian, integrity of these key pedestrian streets, with Broadway being one. This historic architecture that's already on the block, is impacted and interrupted with all of these driveways to structured parking, Structured parking particularly kind of creates site visibility issues with pedestrians on the street. So if at all possible, we don't want those entrances on these streets. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but in this particular case, I think there is this other alternative. So I think that would be our preference from a staff standpoint. And that's why we asked the applicant to consider relocating that earlier in the process.
Jeremy?
Yeah, Shannon brought something up that we were just shortly before the meeting, we were sent a number of public comment items. And I do just want to comment. I mean, there seemed to be a consistent concern about taking away public parking, but it's not public parking. It's a private parking lot that's being used for that purpose now. And I don't think it would be fair to any property owner to say you can't build on your property because we're currently offering public parking spaces. You know, if we need more public parking as a community and as a city, then the city needs to prioritize that and add that. But I don't think it's fair to force that burden onto any particular property owner, this one or any other.
I have a question. Is it intentional? This model on the left is the Masonic Temple, right?
No, that's a
Oh, that's okay.
hypothetical building that could be built on that site based on the current design guidelines for a low-rise building.
Okay. I just wondered because the material change happens almost at that height. So I didn't know if it was some kind of nod to the height of the Masonic Temple or not.
No, Robin, it's actually for the building to the right-hand side. So which is a 2-story tall building. That's where we're trying to match. I mean, I don't think we can match the color that's there because it's painted brick, I believe. But what we're trying to do is have a line across there that responds to the height of that existing building. Yeah.
I was talking up higher, like the 6th floor or something. It looks like there's a material change to metal panel at that point.
Yeah, that is not related. It may be coincidentally related to the Masonic Lodge, which is more about our floor-to-floor heights.
Okay.
So,
Brian. Sorry, I hijacked the screen share since we've been talking about the Masonic Temple, I thought, go ahead and pull it up. So there, we're referring to it earlier, so you can see that center projecting feature that goes up.
Kimberly made me feel bad.
Yeah.
I never organize my thoughts before I speak.
I'm sorry, Brian, can I say one
Go
more
ahead.
thing real quick? Just because it's been a little confusing. So the subject property is here. That void that has that extra building that Peter shows in his model would be right here. This parking right here belongs to the Masonic. And then I think here over belongs to 72 Broadway.
correct.
Well, and to that end, I think if your centerpiece, Peter and Eric, becomes the organizing principle for the whole building, it kind of gives you an opportunity to do materials and things on one side that you do differently on the other. So one side is kind of talking more to the Masonic Temple and the other side is talking maybe a slightly different language that's more relevant. And I would also say that, I know that you're anticipating that wall, that lot line wall that's up against the current, parking area for the Masonic Temple. But I'd kind of like to see what you're planning to do to address that in the architecture. And then I know you guys are going to do this, but I want to say it in the meeting anyway. I'm going to want to see some kind of streetscape kind of views of this when it comes for more formal approval. I know you guys know that, but I just wanted to point that out. And I don't know. I mean, if you have the legal right for ingress, egress, regress of the alleyway, then I don't see that I have a issue with it. If traffic and fire and legal are all clear on you guys using the alleyway, I would actually prefer to keep that area along Broadway for pedestrian and retail and the kind of uses that you have proposed. That's my preference, but I'm just one person.
Well, Brian, we agree. I mean, I think it's a much better outcome to not have a driveway on Broadway. It's going to be a problem for everybody. So.
So this is
Anybody-
Kimmy.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, Chair. Peter, I'm wondering, I am the least experienced of every professional here, but when I look at the building and I also think about, some of the features prior to now, which of course these are different projects. I think the piece that this property has the opportunity to offer is like a real high sense of like welcoming, even if you're not going to be a patron of the property. I think that's the best way that I can actually articulate all the things that were going through my head without saying them all. And I don't feel like I probably have the tools to express what I'm thinking, but I will share some visual. I have a background in design. I just never say it. And it's for something different. It's textiles, but nevertheless, I think for me, the things that are missing are like, the landscape piece, the landscape architecture, there's a lack of openness, and I don't really know where it should go because I understand the lot lines are tight, the step backs are real, right? But there's, in my mind, I imagine some feeling of a courtyard. I'm not saying you can create that, but there's something that should represent a welcome feeling instead of just this large building that really comes across as being hyper vertical and less taking advantage of as many design elements that are incorporate vertical and horizontal kind of collectively together. So without having the right language, maybe some of the other professionals can say it in a way that makes more sense. I hope that opens up another door. It's the welcoming piece that's missing, and you do that so well. So I think that's why I'm taken aback, because I'm like, this is kind of like Peter's jam, the welcoming piece, So yeah, thank you for listening. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, well, back to everyone's idea about having this strong vertical element coming down to the street and introducing a nice prominent arch. And arches always read as welcoming and entry. And maybe that's what we need to concentrate on next, is making that read. And then I think we'll be getting somewhere.
Well,
I agree. That is well said. Thank you.
To second Kimberly's good comments too, I think that this building, where its location is, it can almost be considered a gateway to downtown. So if you think about it that way, then it does need to have some really striking, prominent things, to bring you onto Broadway. Stephen Lee, you had your hand raised.
And I think, Kimmy, to your point, I think what you're recalling, Kimmy, is what you saw in the first building version here. And the way that it was presented initially was it was all about gateway. And it was this creative corridor was talked about a good bit. And, the building across the street is really, it's small, but it's monumental, and it's pretty incredible. And there's so many great things going on with that across the street with their public art component. I mean, that's a great inspiration for what could happen on this building. But I think as MHA and Peter, as your designs evolve, I think that in addition to the building architecture, pulling a level of detail with his creative atmosphere is going to be really important, even down to like street furnishings. I know the city has to approve those, but you could really create this strong sense of place with locally created artistic street furnishings and elements that, changes in paving that really announce something special going on right there. I think that would be beneficial. And last thing I just wanted to mention was we know this is a hotel, and this committee is under a lot of pressure by comments that we receive both publicly and privately. And our goal is to help make sure that this can be the best it can possibly be. And a lot of times that means going beyond the basic requirements. And Peter, what y'all are demonstrating right now is that y'all are climbing up above those basic requirements, but there's still going to be this, desire for us to see things that go way beyond, like a total green roof, and elements that everybody can get really excited about. And so we'd love to hear that y'all doing that. We know you've pulled off green roofs incredibly well in the past, successfully downtown. And we need to see stuff like that will get everybody excited about this building. I can't wait to see y'all's perspectives with these photos from the street. This building is massive, like massive, 9 stories. And it's just going to change the streetscape so much. And we all want it to feel and look good. We want your client to be successful. And we want the citizens of Asheville to be like, okay, wow, we get to celebrate this building for another 100 years. And look how great this street looks now. So good luck. It's a big task.
Okay, Kimberly.
Yeah, I want to just say one more thing. I realized that one of the things I love about architecture and really great design is that I'm going about my business and all of a sudden I'm stopped by it, right? And there are several buildings in the CBD that do that for me, but especially on this side of the street, like this particular corridor, I can walk and meander and gaze and, take my time in the intricacies of each of the buildings. And so I would like you to work on that because this right now is not that. And, you just walk or stroll or wheelchair right by it and not think about it. And it just requires more because it's on this road.
I agree.
Shannon.
Before we sign off, I didn't want to jump in front of any of the other committee members. So I just wanted to check. Okay. Nobody else. Okay. So Stephen Lee already touched on this, Peter, but just a few parting thoughts. Green features, green roof, anything like that you're contemplating. Let's go ahead and identify it and
Sure.
kind of know what we're looking at. The sign you mentioned already, you think it's too large. I will tell you it is too large for our sign code. So if you have the idea of doing some sort of special feature that's integrated into the architecture, you might want to definitely review the sign requirements. It's going to be pretty small. It's like 50 square feet. And so just FYI, that's not part of this review. So that'll be a separate review. You know that. So
Yeah, but it needs to be thought about at this point instead of being an afterthought.
yeah, I would encourage that. So
Yeah.
if you have any questions about that, let me know. I should be able to help you. The retail, you had shown that kind of redesign. I mean, I like that the retail got larger, but I don't think it meets the intent of the code to combine it with the hotel lobby. It's okay to have a connection to that retail space. Like the Aloft Hotel does that with Diamond Brand. You kind of walk in. I mean, you actually go to the lobby on the second floor, but you walk in and then there's the door. But it has to have its own exterior public entrance to meet the intent of the code. The idea is that they operate independent of the hotel.
That's what we'll have. There's an entry from the lobby into that retail space, but there's also one from the street because at some point during the day they'll be closed off.
Yeah.
The lobby. But it's just that when during normal business hours because there's not that much space on the ground floor for retail, we want it to feel big as possible.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't get too far and have that. The other is that you had mentioned in one of the other discussions that you were contemplating an art element, like a public art element to this project. And I think that's something that, that could also be used to help with placemaking of this project. You have the potential to, through your public benefits that are going to be required with this. There's an option for public art to pay a fee for that. So I'm just mentioning that too, also imparting just for your consideration. So
Okay. Well,
that's all I had.
okay. Well, thank you all very much for your time. This was great, and we will keep working, and I think we would like to schedule at least one more of these sessions with you if you'll put us on your agenda. We would, we'd love to do that.
And we can promise you that you'll see drastic changes.
So I had you penciled in for another informal review in April. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks
All right.
again.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you
I really
very
enjoy
much.
this process.
Val, we do too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure, we do have some public comment. One public comment. I don't know
Okay.
if
All right.
I'll go ahead and bring them in now.
Thank you. Caller, are you there?
Caller, could you please state your name?
Avery, do you have the *6? Did you unmute the line?
Should be. Let's see. Caller?
Avery, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. This is Brian Golden, attorney in Asheville, North Carolina. Just wanting to comment briefly on the access to this Create 72 Broadway. I appreciate all of the committee members' discussions about it, but I represent some property owners that utilize the alleyway for access, and in particular, the Momentum Gallery. It has access through that alleyway and the parking lot. And the issue that I have with that access, Shannon was right. There is a public alley that ranges in size from 25 at its largest down to a little less in the back. However, in that alleyway, there are deeded, at least for my client, Momentum Gallery, there are deeded parking spaces. And those parking spaces are your typical 9-foot wide parking spaces. And so even at the largest on a 25-foot alleyway, if you subtract that 9 feet, you're down to a 16-foot alleyway, which, as Shannon said, doesn't meet the 20-foot requirement for access. Also wanted to say, although it may be a public alleyway, there's about a dozen specific properties that have mentioned in their deeds the right to use that alleyway for access. And unfortunately, 72 Broadway and its other, I think it's lots 8 and 9, don't have that deeded access. And so I think it's more than just an assumption that there's access. I've got a significant amount of title research that was conducted that shows access is less than 25 feet because of these deeded parking lots, and that 72 Broadway may not, in fact, have the legal right to use that alleyway. And then the last thing that I would say is, in that alleyway, it's not on the city's Powell bill funding, which means they don't get any monetary funding to repave and provide services in that alleyway. And without that funding, I don't think that there's any ability to enforce towing. Not one particular person can tow somebody else's car if it's in an appropriate spot. And so I think it's something that doesn't need to be overlooked. I'm happy to talk to the developer and their legal counsel. I'm happy to talk to Brad at the city about what I've found. But from a design perspective, using that alleyway is inappropriate in that the smallest, the skinniest area of that alleyway is 16 feet. And so, Eric, I appreciate the design changes that you've made in the past, but with the main entrance and exit for the parking garage coming through that alley, I think that that's a big hurdle as far as design elements. And so I just want to thank you all for taking the time to listen.
And this design does assume that they have the ability to use the alley in the way they want to. So if it is verified that there is some legal reason that they cannot use the alley in this way, then that could, result in a change in the overall design for access. So I don't know that the alley has to be 20 feet wide. This is not a public road. Alleys can be less than that. So that's just something that we would have to have more information. It would be helpful to have, I think, Mr. Golden talk to your client, Eric, and see, I imagine your client has an attorney as well. Maybe the attorneys can get together and kind of figure out this access, because I think it will have a fairly profound effect. If we have to move the entrance to the front of the building, it will have a pretty profound effect on the design. So that's probably an important detail to figure out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can take note and I'll make that connection happen.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And Shannon, just to your point, I was using the 20-foot as required by the UDO, I think, for access that's more than 150 feet off of a public road. Your UDO section 7-11-2 in paren G says it's got to be a minimum of 20 feet. And I think the minimum in that alley is 16 feet. So that was where I got my comments from, and that was from the UDO. But Eric, I'm happy to talk to your client and share the information that I have, which I think limits the ability to use that alleyway as the primary access.
Hey, Brian, this is Warren Sugg. Will you share that with me as well when you're sending it out?
Yeah. Hey, Warren. Good to see
Thanks.
you. I certainly will send that out. You bet.
And hey, Brian, can I get that deed information for the parking as well?
Yes. Yep. I sure can. I'll get that out. I'll compile it all together and send it out to everyone that requests.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
All right. Thank you all. That was all my comments.
Jeremy?
Yeah, Chair, just if we're about finished with this item, I've got a hard stop out. I'm out of here at 2:30, so I'd like to move on to the last item.
That's what I was going to suggest
Okay,
we do.
Thank you.
So if everybody's done with that, I think with that caller we are. We're going to move on to the next informal design review project, which is 363 Hilliard, the Avery, and we have seen this project before.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. You get a full screen, but best we can do. Okay, yeah, so you've seen this project a few times. This is the Avery at 363 Hilliard, mixed use, multifamily residential building development with 2 buildings on the site. Essentially, this is a informal kind of a courtesy review that the applicants requested because it was recommended and voted to not be recommended for approval by this committee back in January. They went ahead to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in February 2nd. Anyhow, after making some pretty significant changes to the facade, it ended up getting approved by Planning and Zoning, and they're going to go to City Council next Tuesday, the 22nd, for final approval. And they wanted to come back to you all with their revised plans to kind of get a courtesy review, and that way, any comments given at this meeting we can share with City Council next Tuesday, and hopefully, vote in their favor to support the project more. So let's see. just hit some highlights. This is at the corner of Klingman and Hilliard Avenues, both of which are key pedestrian streets. A total of 187 residential units are proposed between the two buildings. The building on the left is proposed to be 5 stories, and with leasing and commercial and amenity space on the ground floor on Hilliard. And then the second building is residential only and be 3 stories. I'm just going to flip right to the access is off Hilliard and Pearl Street. A total of, let's see, 201 off-street parking spaces are provided, 67 of which are covered under the building and kind of tucked into that below ground elevation. Some conditions that the project has offered is that they're going to restripe Hilliard Avenue to have bike lanes running west and running east, a left turn lane off of Hilliard eastbound onto Pearl Street to help with any potential backups there. They're working with the utility companies to bury the underground, to bury the above ground utilities that are currently on Hilliard and Klingman Avenues. So as far as the design of the actual buildings, some minor changes to the Hilliard Avenue elevation, mostly with like the mullion patterns of the windows, especially on the ground floor. Really the Klingman Avenue elevation saw the most dramatic changes. They've kind of regrouped the bays of the building. I think before there were maybe 3 or 4 of these kind of 2 window width elements or bays, and they've been reduced to have a little more variation. They've added entrances with these kind of stoop and porch features along Klingman to help activate the street, and also kind of bumped out the balconies a bit that you'll see in the renderings more. These elevations around the corner next to the USPS site didn't change too much, and then likewise with the parking lot elevation. The residential building kind of lost some windows along the way, and they've added those windows back in, so has a lot more fenestration and overall similar design as last time as well. Okay, so this is the corner of Klingman and Hilliard. Going down to the Klingman Avenue renderings, you can start to see some of that more articulation on the facade. Here's a close-up view, so you can kind of see how the balconies protrude a little bit along the way. Some of the entrances proposed off of Klingman. You can see a little better in the next one too. So to kind of help, break up the massing, break up kind of the monotony of the previous design of the facade. Also activate the street level with those entrances as well. Here's a view of Hilliard Avenue and the retail space and the pedestrian plaza that has been part of the design since the beginning. And another view of Hilliard looking back the other direction. And then finally the corner of Hilliard and Pearl Street, focusing on the building number 2. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer questions or turn it over to the applicant team. They're here as well to share any more information or answer any questions that you all might have. But it'd be great to get some feedback that we could then relay to City Council at next Tuesday's meeting for this project, this conditional zoning.
Does anybody have any comments or questions? Brian.
Yeah, so I communicated, I think, these comments to the design team, presented substantially this redesign to several of us. I think prior to the P&Z meeting, I sent my comments in to P&Z as an official comment, and I was just going to go over those again, that the revisions have improved the building. I thought the breaks in the composition between the two corners on Klingman did a better job of breaking up the mass into 3 overall components. I think the pedestrian access via the walk-up units shown on Klingman have kind of activated that in the way that we were speaking about, that articulates the street wall facade, and specifically complies with recommendation 1F and 1G of the downtown master plan, and that the revisions to the fenestration and the brick detailing at the Hilliard Street level was enhanced over the previous submittal that we had seen. Essentially that I would be in support of approving the project as it has been revised, and just appreciate the design team's continual work on listening to all of our recommendations and trying to incorporate those.
Will, we're not voting on this or anything. It's just comments, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
We
Jeremy.
we can't.
Shannon.
Sorry, I was just going to say we're not going to re-vote on it because the vote's already done. But it would be helpful to be able to report to council that during this courtesy review, at least a majority of the committee members supported the redesign. So that's kind of the goal of today's meeting.
Okay. Jeremy?
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Brian said. I do support the redesign, and I'm very pleased that they listened to, his and Robin, your suggestions, as well as Stephen Lee's, to improve the project. It resulted in a better project for Asheville.
Stephen Lee?
I'd like to make a motion that we forward a favorable review to City Council, and also we publicly acknowledge and express our appreciation to the developer and the design team for working together with us for a better project.
Second.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote for that. Jeremy?
Sage has her hand up. Real quick.
Oh, Sage, sorry.
I'm going to come on camera for a second. I've been off camera with an eye injury, y'all, but I wanted to echo those thank yous both to the developer and the design team, but also to this committee. I am very thrilled with how you all handled this process, and we owe you so much gratitude. All of us on council have been very appreciative of your efforts and taking several attempts at this particular design, and we are here with something much more attractive and suitable for the community. And I just want to make sure that you all as volunteers were also thanked.
Thank you, Sage. I'm going to go for the roll call now. Jeremy?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
Stephen Lee?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So we can send that letter. Are there any more comments, or can we move on to future discussion topics? Kimberly has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the development and design team as well. I know that last time was a little disappointing on your end to hear all the comments and the changes and the request. And this is actually what being a professional and really skilled team looks like, is being able to see the issues, hear the problems, adapt, and produce something that's even more spectacular. So thank you so much. We know that it was a hard way last time, and it's really great to see this.
Thanks for all the kind words. We really appreciate it.
Okay, if no one else has any more comments, we will move on to future discussion topics. Does anyone have any future discussion topics they'd like to bring up? We will be having new members at some point. Shannon, do you know when? Shannon?
I don't know. I think council is I think at their next meeting, they may be appointing at least one more member. And I'm not sure. I'll have to check on the status of the others and we can email you that. I did just want to briefly mention, some of you may be aware that council is returning to in-person meetings. The Buncombe County mask mandate has been dropped, but we, city and county facilities are still asking for masking during gatherings of larger groups. So council will be meeting in person at the Harris Cherokee Center, but are still asking for people to be masked. We do expect that our boards and commissions will also return to in-person meetings, but we are awaiting direction. So it may be some time. I think we will probably have at least a couple months to allow for transition once they do announce. So I think we can expect to continue to meet remotely, at least for another couple months, but we'll be sure to update you as soon as we have more information.
Thank you, Shannon. Kimberly had her hand up and then Sage.
So just, I would like to defer to Sage first, just because it could go with what Shannon was saying, and then I'll come after.
Okay, that sounds good.
Oh, mine is simple. My understanding, I'm also the Riverfront Commission Chair. I think we appointed Kate and Kaya to the Design Review Committee. So you do have one new member that we have already planned to send your way next month. And I think we're voting on one more. Shannon's right.
Oh, okay. Yep. That I knew Kate was coming. So that's great. That's a good update. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So I just wanted to ask and see if we could vote on, a chair and a vice chair. I think we have an interim, and I'd like to see if that's the possibility today.
It is up to the commission. You all can decide. I thought we had decided to wait until we had at least a couple more appointees join the committee. And that's why I didn't put it on this agenda, but
yeah. Well, I understand that, and we did agree to that. I just personally, I think it would be great if we could just kind of knock that out and keep moving. I don't know if everyone feels the same way.
Could I ask you to maybe consider at least waiting until the next? Well, I guess if that is the preference of the committee, could we perhaps wait and handle that at the next meeting? Only because we didn't advertise it on this agenda, and we probably should.
Yeah, we can wait until March, right? That's the next one. Yeah.
Kimmy, does that work for you?
No, but I'll go with majority.
I mean, if we need to advertise it, then
yeah,
I
understand.
We don't really have to have any choice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then our future discussion topic is next March. Look for some exciting elections.
Do we need to? I'm looking at the rules of procedure and I can't see. Do we have to do nominations or can we just do it in the meeting?
We just do it in the meeting. We asked about that last time.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have a nominating committee or anything like that. All right. Well, if no one else has anything else, then I think we've been on here long enough and can go about the rest of our day. Everybody feel good about that?
To adjourn.
All right. Oh, wait, do we have any public comment? Ooh.
We did not have any public comment.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
This is kind of an anomaly, and I did want to bring this up. This setting was supposed to be turned off, but it was allowing live text comment during the first item, which we're not supposed to have. But Shannon, you might be able to answer this too. But I didn't know if you wanted me to. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because there was one public live text comment during the first item, but since it's already been voted on, I didn't know.
How about you and I look at that, and if we need to add it to the public comment folder or share it with the committee, we will. But since they've already voted, I think we move on at this point.
Okay.
Okay. Well, then we are adjourned. Bye, everybody.